All right, here's our Eldencard demonstration. Now remember that Eldencards are just blood typing cards. We probably already looked at the common blood types in class, lecture, lab. So again, as a refresher, remember that most all people fall under that ABO blood typing system. There's something like 35 blood types known worldwide, but most of them are really rare. But almost everybody's going to be type A, B, AB, or O. And then when you hear about the positive or the negative added to it, that's just the presence of another protein. So to type most everybody's blood, all you have to really look for is the presence or the absence of three things. A protein, B protein, and then what they call this D or D antigen here is the same as the Rh factor. So we're looking for the presence or absence of some proteins on the surface of the red blood cells. So if you look at this Eldencard, notice this first circle has beneath it anti-A. These are antibodies on these cards. So anti-A antibody will only clump. That's what they call the agglutination. It looks like a clumping together. A chemical reaction binds them together. Anti-A will only clump with A antigens. Anti-B only clumps with B. And again, the D is the Rh factor. So if you look for the presence or absence of these three things, that's going to tell you almost everybody's blood type. So the first thing we need to do is just put a little drop of water on each one of these circles just to loosen up whatever chemical is on them right there. After that, we just need a few little drops of blood. And we're going to take these little tiny sticks called Elden Sticks, get a drop of blood, use a different one for each little circle. That way we don't contaminate anything. And that way we can get all this to work. So here we go, just going to get a few drops of blood. So there we go, a little stick right there. And I'm going to see if I can get some blood. Oh yeah, there we go, perfect. All right, so I'm going to get a drop of blood here. And I'm just going to mix it in right there. Might want to get a little bit more on that one. Blood running all over the finger here. Get another stick. Get a little bit more on this one. There we go. That gives us a little bit more there. And I'm going to squeeze that finger a little bit more. There we go. Getting a little drop hanging on the bottom. And mix that one in. And then one more stick for the last one. Okay. Oh, yeah. Okay. All right. There we go. And it probably wouldn't hurt to put just a little bit more on these others right here because I've got the little drops of blood available, no trouble. So let's put a little bit more on that one there. And then last time on this other. There we go. Okay. Now we've got our drops of blood on our card right there. So what we have to do is watch for the agglutination. That's the clumping they always talk about in the book. Again, a chemical reaction will actually bind and hold those antigens and these antibodies together. So sometimes it helps just to stir it up a little bit right there. And I'll zoom in just a little here if I can. Give us a little bit of a closer view. There we are. Gives you a little better view of what we have here. And I've noticed you sort of shake them around just a little bit. It often gives you just a little bit of a quicker reaction. So remember, what we're looking for is the agglutination, the binding of the antigens and the antibodies. So again, if you think about this, this has the anti-A antibodies on the card. Well, if it clumps, that means the A antigen's there. This has the anti-B on it. If it clumps, the B is there. And again, the D is the Rh factor. So if it clumps, that's where you get the positive. Excuse me, if it doesn't, you give it a negative. So think about if none of these were to clump right here. If none of these clump, well, that means the A's not there, the B's not there, and the D's not there. Well, if A and B are not present, that would be O blood. And if this did not clump, it'd be O negative. If this did, it'd be O positive, and so on down the line. Just looking for the presence or absence of a few proteins is all you need to type most people's blood. So at the moment, notice we're not really seeing any clumping going on any of these little spots. Well, again, if none of them clump, that would be O negative. A and B aren't there, that's O. This one doesn't clump, it's going to be negative. Now, I've noticed from doing these over the years, sometimes the one to the far right, the little RH factor or D antigen, often takes the longest. So sometimes we have to give it just a little bit of time right there and shake it around to see if it's going to clump or not. So at the moment, we can't really see much. We can see the red blood cells mixed in with the blood, but given enough time, if one of them is there, we should be able to see a little bit of a reaction. But again, if it doesn't, not important. Just remember, if none of them clump, well, A and B is not there, so it's O, and if that doesn't, it's O negative. And you may have heard about O negative being called a universal donor, because if those red blood cells don't have any of those antigens, there's nothing for an antibody to react with. So somebody with O negative blood could donate to who they wanted because there's nothing on those reds for an antibody to react with. So that's where they get universal donor from that type. So there at the moment, we're not seeing any clumping at all. We'll just leave it right there for an amount of time. And if anything happens, we'll tune back in. But if it doesn't, that would just be an O negative test. But sure would be nice if at least one of them did.